What is up, guys? Wraec is here with a new video, and today we are going to look at this clear of season stage 872, season talent stage. And the interesting thing here is we are going to take a look at level 30 faction skills. Not only will we see the level 30 Hypogean Celestial faction skill, but also level 30 Lightbearer faction skill, which is very, very insane, as there is quite an interesting upgrade that I wanted to check out in this skill tree, which is this one. Here it says the effect radius of both spells extends to 2 tiles, so there is a massive AoE increase of the faction skill for Celestial and Hypogean. And if you don't know what they do, they consist of 2 effects. One effect is basically dealing true damage with a little bit of AoE, and the other one is having a Vortex effect, such like an iron bolt, where you pull the enemies together. And this usually has a very small AoE, and I'm hyped actually to see how it looks like at level 30, because it is way more fancy. So there it is, 872. We can see Celestial Hypogean team right here. We saw the team before. Very high upgrade stages here actually. And level 30 Celestial Hypogean. And on the other team we got a Tazi team with Sinbad and also level 30 Lightbearer. So I think we're going to watch both clears. First of all, this one. Keep an eye open for the Vortex effect, because it is very cool. There you can see it. It's like across the entire, like half the map, I would say. That's very, very insane. Looks like half the map to me. 2-tile AoE is pretty big. Is very, very big. And he's absolutely slaying through those enemy teams. It feels to me a little bit like the Vortex. Does a bit more damage even than the true damage hit afterwards. But the true damage hit has a few more extra things to it than just the damage itself. It'll also trigger some of the effects on the skill tree. And I have to say, like, the size of this Vortex is really, really impressive on this one, and makes it a whole lot more useful than the base one. The base one is very, very small, but this is really, really insane, even on such a stage. And he sent me a particularly nice one, I have to say, with a whole lot of enemies here. Even there, we're looking at a pretty great clear and pretty great control also of the enemy team. The damage they dealt was pretty limited, and I didn't feel like they were really at the risk of dying there. So actually very, very good. We can also look at the second team. This is a Tazi team. And the Lightbearer one isn't that impressive, I have to say. There is like this effect in there that when the Prime Carrier is defeated, a shadow remains that casts the ult again. Can be very cool, but truly the upgrade on the Hypogean Celestial one seems a bit more impressive. Still, always nice to see a Tazi clear, and on 872 we are truly talking about high deficit clearing, which, I mean, like, I'm always a bit too lazy for, I have to say, but nonetheless it's always impressive to see. And if we have the opportunity to do so, why not dive into it and see? So for the first ult, it's always like a little bit of a low damage, and then suddenly once she gets the second one, the enemies really start dying, as you can see it right here. Even on such a high deficit, she's still doing a ton of damage and keeping the entire enemy team at control. Berial there already close to being dead, then there she's gone. And really, it seems like such a riskless team, keeping the AoE up even before we have the Mythic Plus charms. Keep in mind, we get the Mythic Plus charms, we can enhance this Hypnotize effect to 6 seconds. So definitely insane. Talene here with 17 billion damage, of course, also impressive. We have more clears though, and maybe before we go into the clears, let's take a little bit of a look at the skill first, because it is fairly interesting. So we get the AoE clear, or the AoE, the Vortex effect. We get this from the second talent tile on stage 2. So this is the dark effect, the Hypogean effect of this tree. The other one is considered the Celestial one. 3 seconds into battle, 6 seconds after, the buffed ally creates a black hole that lasts for 3 seconds, then casts an area with the most enemies, dealing 30 magic damage to enemies within 1 tile and pulls them towards the center. Within the 1 tile is basically like the adjacent enemies, so it's 1 tile in the middle and then like 1 tile next to it. It's a rather small effect. Still, it proved to be fairly efficient even at this stage, so it wasn't like really bad. We tried it a bit against the Black Creeper boss, but the thing was like it never really pulled them all together. If we had this still, however, that extends this to 2 tiles, I think that would have been a different story. Keep in mind, there are also other effects in here. We have the HP recovery here, we have the enhanced true damage, stun is in there, And also we have the energy recovery. Recovers 60 energy for all allied prime carriers for every enemy hit, which refers to the main skill, the celestial skill that deals the true damage. So on a stage like the one we just saw, with multiple enemies, with even more than the 5 standard enemies, we recover a ton of energy there as well. So fairly fancy. And I think we're just going to watch the second kill that he sent me, which is also a very interesting one. So here we're looking at talent stage 877. Dude is grinding. Again, a Tazi clear that we have here, which we're not going to watch again, but I just want to mention it to further amplify how good she is at the moment at clearing such stages. Here we are looking at a stage with Talene, Scalita. Again, it's the same. Talene, Scalita, Fresto is usually the trinity of like the Celestial Hypogean in those teams. Smokey's in there, and we have a Paragon 4 Odi, which I told him he's a bloody whale for having this. But he's told me it's only a single one, which, I mean, I don't believe it, but that's the case. So let's watch this. Let's watch what the Paragon 4 Odi can do in such a team. And I mean, like, the control of this is pretty insane. The tankiness of Fresto, even against such high-level enemies, is still surprising to me. Odi's starting to do some damage. I mean, the dot proc is really not that high on those enemies. Would have thought that it would go a little bit higher, but I mean, like, they probably have a ton of HP, so it's not really that surprising. But nonetheless, this Odi should make it a little bit easier to punch through those guys, to get rid of them, especially if enemies have like a ton of heal or shield or something like this, especially shield. It can be very nice to have an Odi, just finish them off a little bit quicker. For the same purpose, of course, we kind of have Scalita. So I wonder, the combination here, I mean, oh, look at this Lucius. I wonder how much damage this Lucius took. Like, he's really tanky. But he just gets pulled all over the board. Did you see that? He just got moved all over the board by this skill. This is insane. This is insane. I wonder if you could combine this with Ulmus very well and get like an insane effect out of this. So where is this? 76 billion damage is what this Lucius took. Like, the numbers here are truly insane. This is really crazy. I have to say, it's really crazy. Come on, we watch the Tazi clear again. Just because I think it's very fancy. It's often like she just dies, she just goes into a recovery mode, but she has enough recovery mode stacks from the start to just get to her ult. In this situation, she didn't even die, actually. Just going into her ult. We have Sinbad there to make one enemy a little bit easier to clear, enhancing the damage received by a substantial amount, actually. Can be helpful, I guess, in many stages. I personally haven't used Sinbad in there, but I can understand why, and I definitely get it. That is an interesting way to clear this, even though, I mean, like, look how fast those enemies are dying. The one with the Sinbad mark was dead first, yeah, but like everybody else is just like a second after. It's crazy. Okay, he sent me one with Nara as well. Okay, here we have the Nara clear. Not super highly upgraded, Supreme Plus, it seems, 2-star. I would have expected her to be a little bit high upgraded on his account, but okay, it's okay. Again, Tazi clear on the other stage. And here we have it. He used the binding spell artifact. Interesting. Throwing the enemies a little bit away. Those enemies, they are, I always have to read what they do. They introduce so many enemies, it's crazy. Let's take a look at this. I wonder how he implemented the Nara. Pulling over the first enemy, and I mean, of course, we keep our team a little bit more compact with Nara. That is something people sometimes forget. You don't really have your own team rushing off if you pull one enemy close. Still, it seems like they're mostly focusing on the Frestos. I don't think the Nara actually gets a clear. You can see she has her ult there the entire time. Is only the reason because she only casts it if you're on auto if the enemy is below, I think, 40% of HP. So in that regard, yeah, that's can lead to her not casting her ult for quite some time. You can manually cast it, but really her ult only does damage to enemies with below 40% HP, because otherwise she won't deal true damage. And yeah, it's really not that good in most situations. That's a struggle a little bit if the enemy is tanky to even get them to 40%. Seems like a very solid clear. I mean, it's always surprising to me how much damage this Fresto can take. It's just like tanking everything. The entire rest of the team, you can see, barely got touched, and those guys just tanked everything. Those guys were insanely tanky. Look at this, 91 billion, crazy. And I think we have one last clear. Okay, I mean, this is interesting. He went for for Berial on this one, which is fairly cool. I mean, he certainly can have some power. By the way, if you're wondering about the deficit that we have here, we have, as I said, 751 here. And for example, on the Ludovic, we had 1095. So high deficit would be an understatement. Tazi clearing another stage there again. I'm curious. I'm curious what this Berial did there. I mean, okay, we have like a ton of enemies there. The little frogs already got duped. And he did damage, like we saw it on the end card, he did damage. I never really used him in PvE, I have to say. I think most players don't even own him. Oh, those are those red enemies. Oh yeah, I saw those. They have a very cool animation. I think they made them for one of these side quests, where you have to chase reds, so they put a little bit more effort, I feel like, into this animation. But it is really cool. So, fairly tanky enemies. We see all these summoned enemies as well there. I mean, I would say the synergy, if you pull the enemies together, that kind of defeats the purpose of Berial, but nonetheless he worked very well on this stage, and we got a whole lot of dupes there, and look at our shadow army. That's quite insane. That's really quite insane. The overall damage, really, that he did there, 5.2 billion, is really not all that bad. It's literally close to Talene. Very fancy. I've never really considered using him in AFK stages, so I'm surprised to see him here. I actually own him. If you have used Berial in PvE, please let me know down below. I wonder what your experience with him is. And while we are ending this video, I think it was mostly a showcase. Let's watch this Tazi clear. It was mostly a showcase of like those high stages. Endgame sent me the clears. I was wondering how it looked at the moment for him, because he puts a lot of effort into those stage clears, and yeah, it's quite insane. I think. And seeing the different clears with Nara, with Berial, I really love this part of the game, I have to say. And I'm already looking forward, honestly, to making my Celestial Hypogean tree also to level 30, because that huge AoE definitely looked fun. That definitely looked fun. And maybe I will focus a little bit more on it, because I have used it more in recent times in PvE stages, like this trio of Scalita, Fresto, and Talene. I mean, it is a little bit whaley to activate it. You need the 3 Celestial Hypogean heroes. But I was told in the comments when we last talked about this topic that many of you already own them. I was surprised to hear that many of those who commented said, hey, I own 2 or even 3 Celestial Hypogean heroes, and I have the majority of those heroes. I mean, like, if you don't have Scalita and you have like Talene, the Fresto, and the Rainier, you can use the Rainier, it works. So, interesting. So, that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed those clears. Thanks to Endgame for sending me this. He is actually in my guild, by the way. By now, we just won Battle Druids together, which was very cool. Placed 1 on our district. So, it was a lot of fun having him in the guild. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And with that, we'll see us in the next one.